The salt of the earth. It's a really old expression. You are the salt of the earth. Or the farmers are the salt of the earth. We hear that a lot. It's usually something that is, if we're not telling the story in Matthew, it's usually something where maybe we're talking about farmers. My grandfather worked with Farmers Bank, and he worked with a lot of farmers during the Depression in this area, trying to help them get through it. After World War II, help them get their crops irrigated. And he used to refer to those people as the salt of the earth. These are the real people, the real workers, the ones who do the work, who get out there, make things grow, and change things, and bring us food and nourishment and all of those things. That is the salt of the earth. It also seems to indicate someone who is honest, has a reputation for honesty. When we think about, what does it mean when, they're the salt of the earth, they are. We think of them as reliable, as honest, as people that make things happen. Jesus said to his disciples, "You are the salt of the earth." We've been talking about the portions of the Sermon on the Mount, in case you haven't noticed that lately. One week we talked about Beatitudes, and this week we talk about this little portion about the salt of the earth and the light. When he says this to his disciples, for us to really understand that, we kind of have to go back a little further in time. Our understanding makes sense and is in somewhat derived from some of that, about being honest and straightforward and always getting things done. But there was more to it. In that ancient world, salt was one of the finest preservatives that there was. They didn't have the Whirlpool refrigerator with the ice maker. So they smoked the meat, salted it. It was used to keep the meat fresh so they could eat it and be nourished. Salt saved people from starvation way before refrigeration ever came about. And I have never been to the Middle East at all. I have friends who are maybe a little younger than me who have served in the Middle East, in the armed forces. It is incredibly hot. Well over 100, much of the time. And this is the country, this is the geographic area that Jesus was traveling and living in. This was where they were. So salt was vital to survival. It was not just a preservative, it was also a form of medicine at the time. It was like a wonder drug of the ancient time, before penicillin. Salt was so important that it was even used for money. Soldiers from the Roman era, all the way up to the mid-19th century or early 19th century, maybe 1812, War of 1812, they were often paid in salt or brine. One of those little curiosity factors you find when you're doing lots of lectures for university students. Paid in salt or brine. And the Roman word for salt, the Latin word, was sal, S-A-L. The payment in salt was a salarium. Salarium. Sound familiar at all? Think about it. Salarium. Salary. It's where we get our own word, salary, from salt of all things. Now, we can go to the store and buy one of those little containers of salt, little iodized salt with a girl on it, an umbrella, and it's cheap now. But it is absolutely vital. It was a key part of the ancient world. So for Jesus to say that to his disciples was an immense compliment and an immense responsibility. Just for fun, a little bit of more information as to where the salt came from. You know the saying, the salt of the earth? The salt there usually was obtained very often from Mount Sodom. Remember Sodom and Gomorrah, all that? From Mount Sodom. There's a ridge there of limestone and rock salt. It's right by the Dead Sea. And you know, that's right where we had Lot's wife turned into salt, right? Religious significance. This rock salt was therefore the literal salt of the earth. It came from the earth. The outer part of it that was exposed to the elements became contaminated and depleted by weathering and wasn't good for anything. It lost its taste and value. So it was very valuable to get the good stuff underneath there. Sometimes we get kind of depleted, kind of contaminated. We get cynical. You know, we become hard, and we lose some of our true flavor and our true authenticity. Sometimes we might make comments in passing that are inappropriate, are not truly the salt we need, or maybe they're a little too salty, a little too much. When Jesus talked about the salt losing its flavor, losing its power, that's just, it's so important for us to keep our flavor, keep that, just the right amount. Never get too much salt on something. Oh, it's horrible. Yeah, yeah, too much salt. So it's got to be just right. That's kind of hard, to have our comments be the right things at the right time. It's tough. But we can do it. We can do it by listening. For a while, I got really tired of seeing those bracelets that said WWJD. Now, what would Jesus do? Like bracelets? I think they're a really good idea to think about and keep it in mind. Some of you might remember we had the funny little video at Christmas Eve where the guy was, oh, that's the same Jesus? The one on What Would Jesus Do? Oh, that's the same one that rose from the dead. If you missed Christmas Eve, you got to come again this year. But, you know, I have to admit, I got tired of it. It was like too much of that particular flavor all the time. But we do need to think about that. We do need to be constantly in communication and constantly listening to God. When we cook something, the first time, or when we normally make it, we take trouble to season it the way we want it, the way our family wants it. Now when we get it out and reheat it, we usually don't throw all the seasonings in again, because they're probably still there. You know, we don't overwhelm it with it. So we have to have the right amount. There's another thing about salt. You probably heard the expression, take it with a grain of salt. Right? It means be a little skeptical, have some reservations. Just a funny little story about where that came from. Because salt was sort of this wonder drug at the time, it was often thought that salt was a cure for poison. And so if you took your food with salt, it basically meant you thought that food could have been poisoned, and salt was the cure. Okay? So it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing, the salt. It means that you are using that salt for the right seasoning. You are being just the right thing for the moment. When Jesus was talking to his disciples and the people that were there to learn on the mountain, he used the word you. You are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. It's important for us to know that the Greek word you that was written down, because this was written down much later, okay, and the person was using the scholarly language and writing it down in Greek. The word that they use is a plural. Plural. It isn't you are the salt of the earth. It is you are the salt of the earth. You people, as a community, are the salt of the earth. You people, as a community, are the light of the world. For my money, what Jesus had in mind was a community that would demonstrate to the world there's a different way to live. There's a way to live out that Sermon on the Mount that he was giving. A way to live together, a way to sort out differences, to help each other, be faithful to each other, be a people of integrity. You people of integrity. Bethel. Christians. Citizens. Everybody. There's a way to live with integrity, to sort out differences, to do what people say they will do. To love each other despite differences. Sometimes in our culture, we take the little thing of salt for granted. We might forget to use it, or we might put too much. There are sometimes some examples that I've seen of people that are too much. And they mean well. I do not think they are bad, okay? But there are sometimes some people that I might be walking down the street and someone comes up to me. This is a hymnal, not a Bible, but you'll get the idea, okay? Someone comes up to me and says, "Are you saved? Have you heard the word of God? You've got to hear it and be saved today." That's too much. You know? I want to hear the word of God, and I want them to share their faith. But I want them, and I want us as a community. This is me saying I want. You listen to God, right? But I think that we should do it with love and with compassion and perhaps an expectation that maybe they do know the Word of God, have already met Jesus. They could come to me and say, "I don't know you, but I just want to share this wonderful verse I found. Would you mind if I talk to you about it?" I can handle that. But when someone comes to my door and wants to bang me over the head with whatever it is they're preaching, I get upset. And I'm a preacher. So, I can't imagine what other people think. So, as we are a salt and the light, let's bring the right seasoning. Let's not blind people with a spotlight in their eye, but let's illuminate the world and our life and their world and their community. A Chinese minister speaking on BBC Radio 4, you'd be amazed what you can find when you do research on the internet, said, We are called to be the salt of the earth and light to the world. This is not the same thing as making the whole earth salt or setting the world on fire. Rather, we are called to bring out the flavors of all the mixed ingredients we come in contact with and shine light to illuminate things of all shapes and all sizes. So, if the expression, "we are worth our salt," is to mean something we can try to salt life wherever we need it and bring out the diverse flavors of grace and hope wherever we found them, we can bring out the core of a person simply by loving them and bringing our salt and our light into the world. These followers that Jesus was talking to, who were they? They weren't corporate executives. They weren't professors even. They were average people. They were workers and fishermen, brothers of each other. They weren't aristocracy. In fact, that verse tells us we've got to be more holy behind it than those scribes and Pharisees, right? We've got to do a better job of it. Your righteousness has to exceed that of the scribes and Pharisees, or you will never enter heaven. So, what does that say about all of the very, very formal study? It's not bad. You learn a lot. But it's not there to show off and lord it over people. It is there to get that love and that salt and that knowledge as a part of your heart. Share your salt with the other person. Keep them healthy. Bring out their flavor. Salt was even rubbed on babies when they were born then to help them be healthy. Share your salt. Be the salt and share yourself and turn on that light and illuminate that message of love and hope. We're not being told to become the salt of the earth or to become the light of the world, are we? We're told we are the salt of the earth and we are the light of the world. It's time to share it. We all have that power in us. We are the salt. And we are the light. We will preserve the word. And we will share it. We will bring out the flavors of all the diversity, of all the wealth of people that are part of this universe. Amen.